Welcome back to the Gutshot podcast. I'm Shamso, Sam, your host. And today with us from the very popular The Goodcast Show podcast is my friend here, Vinodh Rajendran.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Love being here. Finally, I'm here. I've been watching epissodes online. Finally, I'm here. Finally, I'm sitting on this chair.
Alrighty.
So many greats have said.
Okay. Well, let's put it this way. I mean, this Gutshot is always a conversation, right? And the reason, partly, I think I've been on Vinodh's program a couple of times,
Yep,
and every time I go there, we are talking geopolitics.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think today we'll make it a bit, we come home and make it very domestic.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And we looked at, I think, I was thinking, talking to you and looking at the situation that Malaysia is in and how we are. I'm a child of the 60s and the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. You're like what?
80s.
There you go. Right.
A bit of a gap.
Yeah. So we've got a different set of perception on how things has happened. Or maybe we come to the same conclusion. I don't know. So let's see where we go. In terms of, I think that's probably it. So Vinodh, where do we want to go first in this discussion with respect to where are we heading as a nation? What kind of leadership do we really need? You know,
I think the main thing, I think the vision or where the vision I would like for Malaysia, my country, is that we change our approach to things as looking more long term. We Tun Mahathir once said, he said that the biggest regret he has is that he never inspired pride in Malaysians in their own work. You know, these sort of concepts, I think we should look to reinstilling in us. Maybe not reinstilling, but instilling as a new Malaysia. A Malaysia that looks ahead, a Malaysia that has plans, leadership that is brave enough, that has enough political will to make the tough choices, to enforce, to bring the hammer down when they need to, you know, to be strong leaders, strong politics, because I'm a big fan of strong politics, and to guide us to where we're supposed to be competitive in our region, to be able to insulate ourselves of if create a layer of like a shock absorption to what is happening out there in the world, you know. These things we need to start looking at, because right now I think the main key issue with Malaysia is everything is short term, everything is the quick fix, which is a legacy that we unfortunately have not been able to do away with. If you go to our history, I'll give you one very simple example. There was a time in Malaysian history, Malaya at that time, where the British were no longer in here. They were already in India. They left. I think the closest force was in Goa. All the Japanese had left. So there was that period where Malaya was not colonized by anyone. Unfortunately, the ruling elite at that time decided that they would call the British back to Malaysia to govern, not take this country for themselves. So that attitude still stays with us till today. In every major decision we make, we look for the quick fix. If you look at business, you look at the CEOs of some of the top companies we have. Why do we need a white CEO for Mars? Why do we need a white CEO for Astro? Why? Our country got no CEOs? Every company I know, like Axiata, has so many leadership programs, CEO programs. What, you mean tell me there's no smart minds in this country? We look abroad for the quick fix because we don't even believe in our own. So this is the problem with Malaysia. The key issue is that we have no pride in ourselves. We have no pride in our flag. But post a picture of an upside down flag and everybody loses their mind. But the love for the country, the faith in your people is not there. So this is the problem with Malaysia. That is why we have issues like brain drain. We have issues of certain individuals who have left Malaysia and created a great name for themselves abroad. I give you another example. James Wan. James Wan was born in Sarawak, if I'm not mistaken, Cebu.
Yeah.
If he was in Malaysia today making films, he will not be nowhere, because we have regulation, we have moral guidelines, religious guidelines. He left to go to overseas made a huge bang, with his horror movie genres, directed other movies, and now Malaysians are, no, he's a Malaysian. So, this is the thing. We do not preserve. I in fact interviewed this one guy, young guy, he's about 30 years old. He's a professor. I think he's about to be a professor, I think. And the way he spoke so intelligently, he was talking about the Malay class, the Malay issues, the Bumiputra issues. He was talking about it, and I interviewed him. But after the interview, he said when he wanted to do certain papers in say, I think it was UM, I think.
Right.
They said they cannot. So he went to Indonesia. And I remember I called our dear friend Prof. Taj. I said, Taj, come on, Prof, you have to take this guy. I mean, this is a mind. You have to call him and try to bring him back. But this is the problem of our country, I feel.
That's a very interesting take. I think I'm surprised because probably I've been a bit out of touch with current hirings of the corporate CEOs.
No, but that's just an example.
Yeah. No.
But it's a culture.
It's very interesting because if you were to ask me today, there are very few jobs that Malaysians are not ready for. Okay, if there are any, in fact, if you look at it, it's interesting. You bring the conversation to where we're heading, right? How do you inspire people? I think there are two things. One is actually to provide a vision for the country and to give the hope for Malaysians in where we are heading.
Yeah.
Okay, that's leadership, but it's also leadership at the implementation level. Okay, and I think that's where Mahathir failed spectacularly, which is when it comes to he did quite a disruptive movement, actually, if you ask me, with respect to leadership when he first came in, right? He lowered taxes. In fact, in 1999, that was a tax-free year because 98 was the currency crisis, right? And he brought in the Vision 2020. Unfortunately, when you bring a vision like that, you must have long-term structural reform or structural. I wouldn't even call it reform. I hate the word reform because why? Reform means I tweak here, I tweak there. I tell you guys what, the problem is the world is moving way faster than we are catching up to it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would say this. It actually boggles my mind because if you look at Malaysia, right, we are at the center of Southeast Asia geographically. The lanes that is dissecting the Southeast Asian region. In fact, if not, you call the heart of the Asian economy, right? We are at the center.
Yeah.
Okay. We have landmass. And the other thing is actually we are actually one of the most highly educated group. If you say what you want about about the type of education currently we have, but we are from a relative standpoint, we are highly educated people. Okay, so that being the case, I put this thesis. If I was a leader, and what do I want to promote for the people of the country? I think it's very simple. Actually, I don't understand why Malaysia cannot be the superpower of Asia.
It's very tough.
It's tough. It's tough, right?
It's tough because we do not want to evolve from the fact that we are a trading nation. No superpower is a trading nation predominantly. They are producers. You look at China, India, US, India, and all. They do produce. The problem with us, and of course, on the secondary point, is they have a workforce that is able to sustain themselves, especially high-skilled workforce. The problem with Malaysia is we do not provide a free market for you to achieve what you want to achieve. There will be invisible ceilings sometimes, and this is the problem.
Well,
And the fear they have is that it's not a fear actually. People think that mempertahankan ketuanan Melayu. I'm sorry, ketuanan Melayu is not a concept that benefits the Malays. It's a concept that benefits the upper class.
Yeah.
Because they, like I said earlier, do not have faith that the Malays are competitive, which is rubbish.
Yeah.
Which is rubbish. If you told a mass of people, I open the floodgates now, I open everything now. You can be what you want to be. You can achieve what you want to achieve. I guarantee you most of them are going to try to reach for the stars.
You see, part of our problem in our culture is actually, even in Asian culture, this one, not just Malay culture, right? Is that anytime there's a nail that is a bit taller, you hammer it down.
Yes.
Right?
Humility is our
supposedly,
biggest,
right? I went to school I went to college in America, and I realized the vast difference in terms of how American mentality is, Asian mentality, and even European mentality. If you go to America and how they think, they are always about, we're going to be number one. There's this aspirational mindset that they are able to actually become the best at what they do.
Yeah.
Right? When I look at our people, and this is where I feel this limitation, the ceilings that we've put on our people, because we try to by using this cudgel of Bumiputra, okay, we hold back other people. In fact, we are holding back everybody.
Everyone.
Right?
Everyone.
And because we are telling the Malays, you actually cannot perform without us being your champion. Right? And then you've got the non-Malays going, you're a second-class citizen. Excuse me? That is the truth. Right? So, but if we are looking at it, right, if that is what we are doing versus what Mahathir had been saying about, I'm going to go for Vision 2020 where we're going to be developed. So our doing and our vision does not match.
In fact, I interviewed Tan Sri Lim Kit Siang end of 2023, I think. Yeah, 2024. End of 24. And in it for his book. And the author was telling me at that interview that for them, they think that Vision 2020 was just an excuse. It was a show. Because at that time, the opposition was growing in strength. So the strategy behind Vision 2020 was just a ploy to attract more non-Malays to BN. So that was the idea.
Okay.
And perhaps now when we look at the fact that it has failed, you could see some sense in that. Perhaps that was the reason. Perhaps. I'm not saying in an absolute way, but perhaps that could be the reason. Now, just to go back on what you were talking about, the ceilings as well, and you talk about this whole affirmative action, right? Unfortunately, my philosophy in life is racism or any negative trait or something negative. It's like you drop a drop of dye into a glass of water. Eventually, that entire glass is going to change color, the water in that glass. So even if you put affirmative action for a certain community, you are going to notice eventually that the other community sort of follow suit.
Yep.
So that is why in Malaysia you have a dependence culture. So I have met people, for instance, authors, for example, when they come from Malaysia, their attitude versus towards the publishers versus somebody who is from foreign is different. Authors locally tend to always blame the publisher for low book sales, whereas foreign authors do the hard work. Because I wrote a book, I want it to sell, I'm going to work hard. I interviewed this one guy who's a Malaysian born, but he lives in Australia. He was going to different countries, doing interviews. So I asked him, I said, wow, it's really good that your guys are actually doing this for you. He said, no, the publisher only publishes the book, gets it in bookstores. It's my job to promote. Whereas he told me, but when he met other Malaysian authors, they would say, oh, the publisher not doing anything and all that, people not. So our people have this attitude of always pointing the finger to the leaders and saying, you are not doing something for me. It's like what JFK said. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. That philosophy is not in Malaysia.
And I think that is where our leadership has thoroughly failed. And
No, but you say failed, but again, that's a personal choice.
oh yeah, true.
See, for me to be lazy, I can't blame Anwar Ibrahim. That's my choice. So like I remember I was watching some of your previous interviews, right? And you talk, especially with the Siti Kasim and all, and you talk a lot about change. The leaders must change. The leaders respond to certain cues. Okay, if you look at what happened in Sabah, right, when the voters did not vote for DAP lost 8 seats. Suddenly everybody is jumping, right? I'd say that what Malaysians should do, Malaysian voters, is start to mobilize. For example, create a super PAC, like what they do in the US. Create a super PAC among normal, ordinary Malaysians and fund independent candidates. That will
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, because that will disrupt the entire system.
Yes.
And the politicians will start listening to you because you have the money. Because at the end of the day, politics requires money. So that's the pragmatic way of looking at things. The problem with us Malaysians is that we cannot always complain because the leaders, the politicians, love that. Because as long as you are blaming me, then I have you distracted, I can do whatever I want. But if you have the money and you are able to dictate terms come election time, I'm going to listen to you. I need the money. And that's not bribery or what. That's the nature of politics.
Somebody has to fund
something, right?
The movement.
Exactly.
Somebody has to fund
pay
the
for the flags and all that, right?
Yeah,
pay for your war room and all.
Right.
So I think those kind of steps we must take. Like people such as, people like y'all who are in the T20 bracket. The problem, another issue with Malaysia, why our leadership has sort of maybe gone a bit out of whack, is because the upper class societies do not get involved in politics. They get involved in politics as a way to benefit themselves, but not to fight for what's right, not to instigate change. So people with the resources and the money, especially to do it, do not come together and then influence political decisions. Individuals may do it, right, for their own business or commercial sense, commercial plus points for them. But what about change? What about directing the company to this entire country to a better spot? So for me that I think is a failure on Malaysians. And
here's what Malaysians will say to you in rebuttal, right? If you talk about the non-Malays will always say, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
That's their attitude. Again, it comes up to the entitlement, right? And they say without the majority, we cannot do anything, right? Every time they hear a conversation on Gutshot, for example, right? They say, why don't you talk in Malay so that the majority can listen, right? But I'm telling people, right, that the movement is actually you only need about 20% of people only.
Yeah.
At most. Okay? That is at most. In fact. And I think that...
Because that movement will start to influence others as well.
Correct.
It will grow, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I do believe, and I keep saying again and again, and people don't, seems to, either they don't listen to the whole podcast, or they just doesn't get through them, right? Because if you look at it, the most educated people are going to be the one that is going to make the change, right? It goes the same like what I say, people with money, people with education, and what does that come into? There's going to be a minority of Malays, whether we like it or not, right? And a majority of non-Malays.
Yeah.
All right? So the change is in their hands.
Yeah.
Right? So and this is what I've been trying to drum. And also so this group of people are the one who's got to put together and initiate that change, whether individually or as a group as they do it, And I do think that we are running out of time. If you ask me personally, I think we are running out of time. And the reason is very simple. We have maybe a runaway of less than 10 years because AI is going to change everything, right? It's going to disrupt it's going to disrupt the economics. It's going to disrupt structure, work life, and they're not waiting for Malaysia to change.
Yeah, that's
right?
true. That's true.
And in other podcasts, we cite again and again to people. 98% of the gig economy is employed or is run by Malays. 98% in an unstable, no career path, no additional learning skills. 98% are filled up by Malays. Ask yourself this question. Why does it not reflect our demographics, right? Why is not 30% Chinese? Okay, why is not 10% Indian? Why is it only less than 2% is Chinese? So, it's a question of choice. It's a question of actually what's their aspiration and their capability and their way of thinking, right? And this whole restructuring of the economy, of the global economy, we are halfway through the 21st century. It's not going to wait for Malaysia.
Yeah.
Right? So if you've got this right away, I would say to both Malaysians and also the policy makers, we don't have time. We really don't have time for reformation. We need really a disruptive group of leaders, and in terms of our thinking population, and that is what I said.
But I think that is tough because you're asking again for leadership to be different. That I think is very hard because leadership, in a sense of political sense, responds to the want of the people. It responds to the behavior of the people. So unless we change in terms of our approach to what we can do for this country and our impact on this country, then they won't change. It's like that ants and grasshopper story, right? So the grasshopper knows that it's outnumbered by the ants, but the ants still don't know it. So like for example, you talk about change and all that. It has to come from the people, and this like what you're talking earlier about how people say no, even if I do anything, so it won't change anything, right? That because
mindset got to change.
Got to change because, and that happens through maybe discussions like this, because the leaders are not going to want that to change. Yeah. If I'm a leader, I don't want all my people thinking like you.
Yeah,
I don't want.
Interesting point of view.
Yeah, because it makes my life so much harder. If everybody thought like you, like I think there was one episode you said, if you use race and religion, I won't vote for you. Hey, bro, my life is super hard now as a political leader. In fact, the only time I would argue that in Malaysia where the government actually behaved to the truest sense of its role and democracy is in 95. In the 95 general elections, the opposition lost badly. They didn't lose, and they lost for one specific reason, which was the economy was doing very well. So even the Chinese were not voting for DAP because the country is doing well. Everyone's happy. Why should I change? So that is how a government should behave. But that takes a lot of effort. So I rather control what you think or spew lies, hatred and all this so that I can control the way you behave, and I can put this mentality into you that, whatever you do doesn't matter, you are a minority and all that, because that's the easier path to take. So that, to me, I think, like what you said, it needs a rejection of this way of doing things by the people first. Then only the leaders will respond. I don't 100% agree that we don't have time. I think we still do. But I think, what is our focus? Because is our focus outward or inward? So, for example, like in Malaysia, we do nothing to promote our domestic market. You see, domestic markets are important because they provide a cushion for you when things change outside. For example, our recent budget was made against the oil price of, I think, 70 per barrel, if I'm not mistaken. 60 or 70 per barrel.
Yeah, that's a fairy tale. Okay, go on.
But now it's dropped. So how do we cover up this gap? We don't have a domestic market that can sustain us. So this is what we should do first. We should look inward first. For example, I once spoke to this Adon of Selangor, and he was telling me a story. He said that people talk about food security. People talk about how the paddy industry in Malaysia is not enough to sustain us. He said in between Kedah and Penang there is a river. I think it's Sungai Muda, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And he said the reason it's just one river separating separating two paddy fields. But why these paddy fields produce differently? You know why? It's because of the irrigation system. Such a small issue, but because it's not addressed, so it causes problem. And then that leads to us, you add and you add and you add, and now we have to import our rice. So we are inviting inflation. We are increasing, and so we need to focus on our domestic first. I think yes, the world is moving fast. Yes, AI will be a huge issue for us, but domestic market must be built up first to insulate us. Recently, our Prime Minister said that tall buildings are not a measure of a country's success. I agree, but the domestic market is still crucial, and they should focus on that.
I think we are coming to one part of the agreement, which seems to be very hard for people to accept.
Yeah,
which is that our people itself, and especially, and that goes back to the same thing that I keep on saying, is actually the learned people, and the ones that want change has to take action.
Yeah,
right. And that will be majority non-Malays. And actually you can make that happen, because why? You need to fund this change. Okay. I think that is correct. I find it quite interesting when you talk about the domestic market, right? Remember when Mahathir was talking about 70 million people? He's not wrong, He's not wrong. Okay. But every nation that has actually grown in wealth is going to have a drop in what you call in the birth rate. That's part of the structural problem that you will face, right?
Cost of living increases, it's too expensive. And
no, but here's the thing that we have, and this is where I call for disruption in terms of how the whole thing needs to change. So our people need to understand. When I say, I think, okay, you said, for you look at it from the point of view, you think, I think we have time. But the thing is, we need that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Right? That sense of urgency that we don't have much time. All right? Because why? Things are changing beyond our control.
Yeah.
Right? And we are not doing things here to create the capability for us to actually, like we say, develop things, have our own market. Right? I'll give you one. I put it this way. Look at what has happened in history, right? All the changes that took a country to another level, right? It's all because of disruption.
Yes,
it's never because of reformation.
Correct.
Right? There's no tweaking with Margaret Thatcher. There's no tweaking with Deng Xiaoping. Right? In fact, there's no even tweaking as far as Lee Kuan Yew was concerned.
Yeah.
Right? Imagine that. A country as small as Singapore having a GDP per capita equal to America.
Yeah, but all that stems from the fact that these superpowers, these big countries, decided on what they wanted to be at an early stage.
Well, UK, right? UK is a small country.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
it is, yeah.
And it had the biggest empire in the world.
Yeah.
At one time, right? And then, of course, the legacies did not work too well after a while, and Thatcher go and shake it up. So basically for us, like what you say, is that our thinking population need to mass together so that we can get different leadership that is going to shake the foundation of this.
Yeah, and you talked about Thatcher, you talked about all these leaders, and I want to bring this point up also because since it's relevant now, since the GE16 is just around the corner, the leadership you're talking about is possible. We've had it before, in terms of Tun Mahathir and all that. To be fair, even I've heard stories about Datuk Seri Najib about how he had a lot of political will when it came to certain projects. Let's forget about 1MDB okay? But all that aside. But the issue now in Malaysia is that, again, the people are not active enough in politics in terms of determining the future of the country. For instance, the big problem, in my opinion now, is our system of post-electoral coalitions. I'm sorry, that to me just doesn't make sense. It is not that in itself is a reason why the leadership type you are talking about cannot exist. That is why nowadays you see a lot of U-turns in terms of policy implementation. You see more appeasing of the people. Why? Because I am in a coalition government. This is not my government. I have to listen to him, because tomorrow you all will just leave and go to the other side. Then I'm done. Today, they may say, PAS will say, anything but DAP. Hey, today I can be enemy, tomorrow I can be your friend.
So what's your solution?
That Malaysians must vote for one single party. You see, this is something, we talk about it, we want reform, we want change and all that. But what is the role that the people are playing? Everybody is pointing fingers at Anwar, but you are not saying that, look, we have done this for a while now, this is not working. Who has said that? Nobody has said that the post-electoral coalition system is flawed because it does not cultivate strong leadership. Mahathir could have done what he did because he had the mandate. BN was the majority. So he can enact. If you truly want to give somebody a chance to govern the country, to enact reform, give them the mandate.
But you know what? Here's the counter argument to that. We have given them mandate for up to years.
Yes, 60 years, yeah. Plus
right?
6 decades. Yeah.
Yes. We had given them mandate for. At no point in that particular period, all right, that one unified party had ever changed the biggest structural problem that we had. Which is race politics, which is the NEP. Basically, we just changed the name.
Come on. Look, the NEP, you needed it at that time. You see, people don't understand. Whenever this topic comes up, it becomes racially biased. Why? At that time, Tun Abdul Razak realized that the majority of the population...
Let's assume it's you've got it for 60 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got it for 60 years. Don't tell me, and in fact, what we have today, right? The civil service is 90%, maybe even more, Malays.
Yeah.
All right? GLCs that I would say even 60 or 70% of them actually does not really make money. Okay? You have to give them monopoly in order for them to make money, right? So that is going to put your cost up, all right? So this structural was never changed, okay? Because we keep giving them the mandate.
No, but you see, back to the NEP. Let's talk about that for a bit. The NEP was needed. The NEP wasn't a bad thing. Why? You see, if your country, majority of the population are the lowest earners in your country, you have a big problem.
I'm not arguing with you on that part.
So my problem is that where the NEP went wrong is the implementation and the enforcement. These two things were done very lax, and political parties like BN and UMNO, for example, would have used it to solidify their position in terms of strength, in terms of resources and money.
Yeah,
okay? That is why you have your network of GLCs.
That is what happened when you have affirmative action.
Yes.
It has happened all the way around the world. Okay? It has Malaysia is not the first to try
but
it.
we are the first to have affirmative action for the majority. That we do.
Yeah. And
other
the thing
countries
is,
for minority.
but every time, and I look at in America, for example, right? All the failing cities are Democrat-led, right? Okay, because why? But they still they keep on getting elected. The reason is the patronage system of that affirmative action.
But
okay,
I think that's
for minority, you know.
Yeah, but let's just go back to one part where we were talking about this whole post-electoral system, because you're talking about that now. You're talking about the Democrats and all that, and your argument is that we had voted the same party for us.
My argument for us is actually, as you said earlier, when you said the masses of the thinking and the one that can fund must band together and create a new movement. That's basically where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I'm coming from where I agree with you.
Yeah.
Right? And that new movement, okay, need to be able to actually disrupt the structural impediments that we have today. I mean, forget about the past. We've already gone through the past. We know what does not work.
Yeah.
I really think that it's a bane on us to keep talking about the past. It's just a waste of time. what we need to look at is that what is our problem today, right? And I think you have put a good solution with respect to how the masses or the thinking masses need to mobilize, right?
Like for instance, when you talk about reform, right? You talk about now, like what I said, where I don't believe that this current system will ever benefit us. In fact, it's going to lead to more chaos, because whoever the Prime Minister is, the power of the Prime Minister depends on the component parties. This is wrong. You need to have one strong party there, majority mandate, and then you can truly see what this guy is all about. Now, the other issue I have, you talk about moving forward in the future, is that for all this to happen, the people must realize their role in democracy. In Malaysian democracy, they must. And the fact is that they don't. And because they don't, that is why we are where we are.
The politicians get away with things.
They get away with things. Because they don't, like for example, you look at communities, firstly, they have successfully convinced us that Malaysia is like a university house where you have roommates, but you're not a family. You live together. Yeah,
They convince us that is good enough.
That's good enough, yeah. But that's not the way. The other day I was looking at, if you look at certain countries and all that, you always see that factor of racial harmony, the way they live together, they work together. That's a key component if you want to be a great nation. But this system, this system that benefited the ruling class before, now is our biggest hurdle, because we believe that we operate in silos. For example, when you talk about the halal industry, why aren't we talking about getting non-Malays involved in the halal industry?
You ask me personally as a businessman, I don't even care about a halal industry. Think about it, right? It's a burden to the cost of to the economy.
No, but why can't we? I agree to that, but also on the flip side, why can't we encourage more businesses to get involved in an export-oriented way, go into other markets, explore other markets, halal or not, doesn't matter, but push them out. Create a force of businesses that look outwards.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, it goes back to the risk aversion of Malaysians. Okay. That has been actually the positive thing from an individual point of view of myself. Because of that risk aversion, a lot of competition that I had when I was starting out in business, you can get ahead of everybody because everybody is risk averse. Okay?
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, we are looking at a nation, right? So we need our people not just to think differently in terms of how they're going to mobilize the votes and mobilize the funds to actually get the right representative for them, right? So that's one issue.
But that just on that point, because I don't want to forget my train of thought.
Please.
On that point of finding the right leader, we have this notion in Malaysia that one day the Messiah will come. The political savior will come, and he or she will guide us to the promised land. This, I guess, is impacted by movies and as well as our religious background, definitely, with this concept of the chosen one will come, right? And to me, I feel in politics, any politician who is there, his or her choices are dictated by what the people want and they demand. So it's literally, you're talking about like a master or puppet situation here, where you have somebody, but because you have the power to bargain, which comes back to what I suggested earlier, which is like about having super PACs and all that, then you can determine what that person does. If not, if you're going to wait for a leader to come and change things, then you'll be waiting forever. Because that leader, who, even though they may enter the world of politics with the best of intentions, they may be that. But once they get into politics, if there is no pull factor from outside, or push factor, whatever you want to call it, from the voters, they will succumb to party politics, party lines. The system will oppress them and push them down to be just among the herd.
So basically, what your point of view is actually, we at the people level, to be very blunt about it, must manufacture those kind of leaders ourselves. And actually push those kind of leaders. Now, then my thesis is actually, what do we look for our people to give support to, and actually rally around this kind of people that we may have. So I looked at it and I said, I always the interesting part, and this is where I also want to have your point of view. Why I thought that the American system is so successful, even though there are 300 million people when they were 200 million when they were already developed, right? Relative to other areas of the EU economy now is dwarfed by the American economy, right? And you can see, I think people don't agree with me sometimes, and I said, look, there are going to be limitations with the Chinese economy, right? And the reason why I can bank on why they are successful, one of the things about their political system is the executive branch is separate from the legislative branch, right? And that allows people, even from the very start of the republic itself, the leaders came from private sector, basically. George Washington was a plantation owner, right? I think all of them come from the private. They were not involved in politics, and that tradition of actually the private sector people, and also partly their civil service later on, especially the military, right? Offering themselves to do what they call, if you go there is a concept which is about national service. They go into politics as a national service. All right. We don't have that. You're right. We don't have that. Our people in the private sector don't want to have anything to do with politics. It's just too messy. It's so we have to create that.
Yeah, because if you keep thinking that way, then no change will happen.
Never.
If you think, I can't do anything, this is messy, then it'll stay messy.
Yeah.
But on that point of yours about, firstly, I think in America, and also interesting you talk about the concept of republic. I think you also talked about the two terms thing as well in your previous episode, right?
Yeah.
I'm completely against that. I'm 100% against that. And
we diverge quite this one. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to argue on the two terms.
Please, yeah.
All right. I'm going to argue. Our country, the term is 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Right?
One term.
I think 5 years is about right.
No, come on.
No, hold on. For one term. For one term.
Oh, for one term, yeah.
Yeah, for one term. 2 terms is 10 years, I'll tell you this. Anybody who stays in a job for that long, okay, is just going to get stale. All right? In fact, I would say 8 years is about right, with 2 years runaway to actually to prepare a handover. Okay? The handover is to the rakyat. Go back to you again for a mandate. Okay? That's basically it. Okay? So your next 2 years is lame duck, right? You've got 4 years, you've got 8 years to achieve all that you want to achieve. 8 years, if you're running a corporation, all right, even if you're, don't even talk about running a corporation. If you stay 8 years in one position, whether it's up or it's in the middle, I would always say this, you're overstaying your welcome.
But you're making an apple and oranges comparison here, because if you're saying 10 years is enough, firstly, 10 years is not enough for you to have a plan and enact and enforce that plan.
Oh yeah, you have.
No, come on. Okay, for example, if I had an education blueprint, that takes more than 10 years. Because a student's life cycle is more than 10 years.
Here's the thing, and this is what's important, okay? If there are a number of things going on, when you either when you run a, I always say comparing to running a corporation, right?
But that's apple and oranges, because the country has different, you cannot compare corporations, the turnaround, the results is faster.
Bro.
The sales cycle is faster.
Not true. Because it also depends on the size of it. Some of the corporations are bigger than countries, right? But what it is incumbent upon you is to have a system, all right? Not just within, whether it's your party or whether it's in the in the national system itself, that by 8 years somebody must be able to take over from you. Okay, if you have a system whereby there are no successor for you, there is no possibility of anybody doing it better than you, then as far as I'm concerned, from a leadership standpoint, you have failed.
But you are looking at it as if, and this is what all Malaysians do, they look at the position of the Prime Minister in terms of a government as the all and be all.
No, I don't believe that.
You see, if you want 2 terms for a Prime Minister, again, another negative aspect about it is that you are creating a kingmaker class now among the bureaucracy.
No, sir.
If you're saying 10 years for the Prime Minister, what about the KSUs, the KSNs? What about them? They are the problems.
I believe in the same thing.
So all of them should be kicked out.
Here's the thing. It's very simple. Most of the time when you look at the progression of the KSUs at that time or whatever, right? They will always get maybe after about a term plus, they're all retirement age already. Okay? It's a natural progression of things.
No,
they're almost all
the
retirement
entire
age.
bureaucracy starts, you see, when somebody joins the civil service, they are going to be there until they retire, most likely. I'm talking about last time lah. Now maybe not the case. Maybe people leave because now there's not all the benefits have been slashed and all that, right? But which is another discussion. But my point is, if you are going to tell a Prime Minister that you only have 10 years to govern, if I am part of the bureaucracy, I wouldn't care about you. You say what you want lah. Number one, we don't even know whether you will survive after the first term. Number two, even if you survive, you just got 10 years. And what can you do? So then that brings a bigger question. What about the chief ministers? What about all the ministers? Okay, are we saying that if the Prime Minister leaves, then the cabinet also leaves, dissolves?
I think it's something very simple in this way. Okay, I look at bottom line in terms of results. All right.
And we have never had better results only under Prime Ministers who did not have a minimum, a max tenure. Tun Abdul Razak,
go on.
Tun Abdul Razak, you look at, even Tun Mahathir, of course he made mistakes, but results-wise, you can't beat them. Are you telling me that things like even the NEP was a 30-year plan? Vision 2020 was more than 10 years. How can you implement changes in just 10 years? You
Why
can't.
Not? You have to put in structural things that then continue even after you. Okay? And even then, you have to trust. You have to trust that the system that you have created is going to bring in somebody that can either make it better, because you're going to make mistakes.
Of course.
All right? You're going to make mistakes.
That's fine.
All right?
That's fine.
So once you have that, okay, once you have that structurally within your whole ecosystem, all right, the right people go on. I can only say one thing about the 200-year plus history of America. Because why? When I look at that, that's the system they've had. All right? And they go from being a frontier nation, okay, with immigrants, defeating the British, okay, going on, having a civil war. Lincoln is a total disruptor. If you want to think about it, right? If you want to think about it, you can say that Lincoln basically tear down the NEP of America and say that you can't own slaves. All right? There's basically an entitled class of people who are owning other people,
Yeah.
Right? He went to war for that. Okay? And he's got 2 terms. In fact, he was killed in his 2nd term. Right? So you look at that. I don't look at Malaysia.
But you can't compare that with
why not?
Because that's just removing a system. That's not talking about the growth of a country.
If you look at it as an example, okay, you always look at where they were and how they have become. Okay, they've gone through their 200 plus history with only 2-term leadership. Right? And they are the most successful economy in the world today. Still is. Okay? No matter what the challenges are, this is what we have seen. Okay? And the fact that they can be successful at that, and I always compare this in this term, right? They have also, whether we may not. People say, oh, they're whites. No. They're Italians. They are Irish. They are Dutch. Then they are also, the Hispanics and all that. They are also a multiracial country. Okay. One of the biggest thing that they did was not to have religion embedded into their constitution.
But US still is very religious. Come on.
Yeah.
In campaigning, I mean, even Trump said he loves Christianity.
But it doesn't matter. Because why? You can go and say you're very religious. Your constitution does not allow you to fund the religion.
It does not, but then the way they handle themselves also negates that.
I don't mind.
They're entirely secular in the way they handle themselves, especially when it comes to campaigning, because they have to pander to voters.
Let's leave it at that. In terms of that is personal. That is that leaves religion in the personal realm. Okay, I appeal to your sense of religious, moral, religious senses.
Yeah.
Fine. I don't care. Right? But you don't enshrine it in the Constitution. You don't fund it in the Constitution. That allows money to go to where productivity can go. The next part, so all I'm saying is, okay, whilst we say, we think that we've tried that for 60 years of having strong, powerful men. Okay, I'm saying that we have seen a result through history for 250 years how a country grow, and I'm saying look at that model. Okay, they're a superpower and they only have 2-term presidency. Okay, certain states in there, the senators also have 2 terms presidency. The Congress, which is, let's call it like maybe state assembly or whatever, right? Has got a 2-year term, which I don't like. Okay, I think that is a bit too short. Okay, and it makes it like non-stop campaigning. All right, but I believe that leadership must have a finite time frame. It then challenges you as a leader to actually make sure that you can implement your stuff within your term. Okay, and it can be done.
But your thesis hinges on the premise that if a leader A comes in and does A, leader B will then come in and build upon that. But
not just that. If let's say that A has got, I'm going on this basis, right? If let's say leader A do A, okay, I don't mind even if leader B comes and dismantle A.
See, but that's not good for the country.
No.
If you have a long-term plan and then these plans keep changing because the new leaders come in, that is not growth.
My belief is this. Okay? If you have a system, our problem is systemic. If you have a system that allows merit to go up, okay, merit will take care of it itself.
Okay.
All right? That is my belief.
Of course. I agree with that.
All right?
100%.
The problem that we have today is like you say, your ceiling, there is a ceiling there for merit. Okay? And it chops not just for non-Malays, it's also chopped for Malays.
Yeah.
Because why? The ruling class is the one that is holding the ceiling down.
But all of this does not point to the fact that the problem in our system is the duration of the tenure.
No.
The problem of the system is the quality of the leader.
Here's the thing then. Okay? Here's the thing. There are the plus and minus of it.
Yeah.
Okay? And the minus part of having a prolonged tenure, I can tell you one thing. Power corrupts. Okay? The longer you hold the power, the longer it will corrupt you. Okay? I know this for a fact.
Then vote them out.
Right?
But your point, you're saying...
But the thing is not just that. Then you have a system. For 60 years, we've had this system.
But that's our fault. Because we voted the guy in for that same party in for 6 decades. Because at that time, Malaysia's awareness in politics was not at the level that it is today. At that time, you know, as the saying goes, even if you put a monkey in a BN shirt, they will vote for him. But now we are in a different place, which unfortunately could be the reason why we have a post-electoral system, because everybody has different. Even the Malays are splintered. The Malays have different things that they also look out for. Last time we thought that the Malays was just an entire monolith, but apparently now it's not. But having said that, now our awareness is such a level that if a leader does not perform, even within his first term, we will vote him out.
Yeah.
Because we have already done it with the BN collapse. So that is why I'm saying the ultimate check and balance is not the tenure, limiting the tenure. The ultimate check and balance is with the voter.
I agree with you on that
So
part.
for me, why do we? This is my point. If you're talking about reform, for example, you say you want reform. Which Malaysian questioned the fact that the reforms that were promised by Pakatan Harapan or Pakatan Rakyat were actually reforms that would make a change? No one. If you want to do real reform, if you're really serious about reform, I'll give you one example. You talk about race a lot on your podcast. You talk about Malay versus non-Malay and all that, right? Let's look at Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka. Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka have a system or have a law, a rule, I don't know if it's a law or what, but they have a sort of thing where if you are a Muslim and if you write something and you refer to Allah, you can use Tuhan with the capital T. If you are a non-Muslim, you can only use lowercase t. So so these subtle things you may think is small, but it has a lasting impact, a substantial impact on our subconscious. So if you want reform things like this.
No, I put it this way. I put it to you this way. I don't look at all these minor matters.
No, it's not. It is very big because it affects your subconscious.
No. The thing is, everything flows down a river, right?
Meaning?
Meaning that actually those type of problems that we have, okay, comes from very primary core problems, okay, which is, for example, when we talk about Malay problems versus Malaysian problems, right? We have put in our we have institutionalized the religion, okay, into not just into into how the government governs, okay, and these are the structural issues that flows down the river and gets people in the civil service to implement this type of thing. But if the focus of the leadership is not that, the focus of the leadership, for example, if the focus of the leadership is economy and technology, okay, maybe we move this discussion, all right? If the focus is technology, the focus is economy, and everything you make that as your KPI, and the KPI of every KSU, of every director general, right? Then the whole thing changes because they will be looking at their economic KPIs.
Okay.
They're going to be looking at how do I then get the teaching of STEM, mathematics, science more into the curriculum. So if you start saying if we start then bringing in people, like you said, that is going to go and then say, we need to have more science, we need to have more math, we need to introduce English into this, okay? I mean, then the river that flows downwards, okay, you won't find this type of problem. Slowly, you will change the whole ecosystem. Yeah. So this is where,
basically,
unfortunately,
you're saying the leadership by example lah.
It's not just leadership that actually change core importance into the society, you know. Okay, so if you look at it, that's why when I go back and I said, look, I don't understand why we are not an economic superpower. If we had actually done certain things, right, then we would. You talk about the internal economy, right? So if we're going to talk about internal economy, I take for example tourism. I take for example, we'll get the oil and gas sector, but take tourism for example, right? If only we say you cannot import migrants, okay? You cannot have migrant worker. You go to a 5-star hotel today. The bulk of the people who are serving you, who are at the reception, are all migrant worker. They come from Philippines. They come from, some even come from Nepal.
Yeah.
Right?
You need them, yeah.
Can you ask yourself this question? For that level of work, okay, why are Malaysians not in there? Okay?
No,
So this is
no, but
internal.
But just back on a few points that you mentioned. Firstly, is you talked about leadership by sort of saying that, pointing out to the people what is important.
No, you have to implement what is important.
Yeah, so
you don't point.
So the number one issue with that is that, and it comes back to this, because again, nothing that you have said points to the fact that the time period of a Prime Minister's tenure is the problem. I'll get to that. Let me just reply to what you said. So first thing is, you talked about implementing what is important. Leaders must make decisions that make, I don't have to tell you that you are a Malaysian, that your effort contributes directly to the development of the country. I don't have to tell you. I can show you. I can show you that I care for you. And automatically you'll feel, hey, I'm a Malaysian.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with you on that.
So if you look at Indonesia, for example, and I know that you don't talk about so much race, but just is one example on this. Indonesia outlawed the use of the word kafir. That because to protect the sensitivities of the other religions that live in Indonesia. Considering the fact that this is a country that has already assimilated, they all speak the same language and all that, they still do this. When there was an issue in Bali, for example, where one DJ in a club played a picture of Lord Shiva, which is one of our deities, the Indonesian government was very hard on that guy. So this sends a message that you are one of us. In Malaysia, we don't do this. We don't do this. So the leaders keep quiet when these sort of things happen. You may say that this is not important. This is race.
I'll not say that this is not important. I'm saying that actually the way I frame it, I'm saying that those issues are that you brought up are a symptom of a bigger problem. We have a bigger problem.
But the problem I think is the problem here is that the leaders are not taking a strong enough stance to say, we don't like this habit, because to telling those people who say racial and bigoted things that we don't like what you say and it is wrong and you will face the full brunt of the law, they don't want to say that because they do not want to risk their votes. They don't want to risk hurting the majority. So they stay away. What that does is what exactly you just said. The people on the minority side now feel like, I'm second class.
Well, here's the thing.
So then they don't contribute because there is no incentive.
Here's where I think the
no, but just one more. Sorry,
sure,
just one minute.
All right.
So you talked another. So that's what I'm saying, that leaders should lead by example by saying, hey, keep quiet, don't talk too much. If you say this, you're going to go behind bars. This is a country for everyone. That sends a strong message, and just with that one small decision, you are empowering others to say, hey, this is my country, I want to contribute. Okay, that's one. Number two, you talk about tourism. I go back to what I said earlier with this country. You talked about superpowers and all that. You named countries and all. And I said that those countries have decided who they are at the start. That's why they are successful now. We have not. We have not decided as a nation whether are we wanting to go for economic empowerment. Do we want to raise our GDP? Do we want to be economically competitive? Do we want to be an Asian tiger? No. Or do we want to be a religious country? Do we want to be surrounded by conservatism? So, for example, you talk about tourism. Just to point out, I think we are, in terms of tourism, our ticket spend is now the highest it's ever been in the past 5 years or something like that. We are growing. So well done to the guy who was, last year, he was under a lot of flack for his dancing and all that, our minister. Let's look at Thailand. Thailand is now going to host Tomorrowland, okay, which is a huge event, global event. The amount of revenue they'll be generating for their businesses, their local businesses, for their in terms of tourism, spending and all that, is going to help the economy. And this event can generate hundreds of millions in terms of economic spend. So, but we will not bring events like that here because certain parties may get offended. That is not morally right. So what are we? Do we want economic empowerment? Do we want to be an Asian tiger? Or do we want to be a religious country? We haven't decided.
Wow.
So for example, if you look at Indonesia and Singapore created funds after COVID to bring down high-profile celebrities to boost their economy. Does Malaysia do that? We're going to have a water festival in KL, and PAS is already against that. They have issues. And now the other parties, I think our Deputy Prime Minister came and said, no, it'll be run according to certain things, our culture and all that. Hello, brother, you want to boost our tourism or not?
Okay, my turn.
Yeah, go on.
Okay.
Sorry.
And this is no, it's okay. I keep going back to this. All right. What are our core issues then? Okay, and that goes to what does the leadership want to provide? You know, that the people we want to amass around our corner, right? What is it that you want to hear from them? For me, I look at it as that the core problem to this is actually, for example, if you put one religion above everybody else, okay, you're already stratifying the society. And with that, no matter what you do, okay, you will have these little Napoleons who is gonna implement things, and you will have political party using that separation and that that class to actually win votes. Okay, so that is something that the leaders that we elect, we must get from them, which is to say, how am I going to change this? Okay, and it's not by one small example, two small example, three small example, because to me, all this that you talk about, is symptoms of a bigger problem. Okay, and the same goes when we talk about affirmative action. Okay, we cannot be going affirmative action for these long years. All right. In fact, if you ask me, when we talk about, you look at even the NEP, it talks about regardless of race, but it doesn't become regardless of race. Right?
Of course.
It becomes very race oriented. All right. So I want leaders that actually is going to tell me, this is how I'm going to change that so that we don't have it anymore. Okay. Then.
But that won't happen, lah.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the funny part. You and I are talking like this, right? 10 years ago, you won't get this on the airwaves.
No, of course not.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? Today you can.
We'll all be in ISA.
Yeah. No. You RTM will not broadcast you.
No, of course
right?
not.
They
Yeah.
won't host you. Today, I don't care. Come on board. Let's talk. Right? Let's say whatever you want to have a say. Okay? I don't agree with all of what you say. I'm for the two term. I believe that people need to be checked and balanced and kicked out automatic. Okay? After a certain period. I don't care whether how good you are. I don't care. Okay? Even if it was me, I want to step down. In fact, as I said, Washington wanted to step down after his first term. All right? He was persuaded not to.
But he wasn't that of a great leader. Let's
doesn't
be honest.
matter.
I mean,
Doesn't
he
matter.
lost a lot of
It's
his
the
battles.
mindset. And it's the mindset.
No,
the mindset.
I agree.
The mindset is, for me personally as well, okay, I step down. Because why?
But you're running a company. It's not a
doesn't
country.
matter.
It's different.
Because doesn't matter. Because you should have somebody, you should have the ecosystem that is ready for people to take over. Okay? That is why when you have built that ecosystem, then you're bringing the country to a different level.
But doesn't the two term also then you talk about symptoms, but doesn't the two term still then reinforce the fact, like what we were talking about early on, that the voters do not feel that they are involved enough, or they do not determine the future, because you are saying,
well, because
we
the
need a
second guy after 10 years is going to have to be voted by the people anyway.
yes, but why do we need that when we already have a democratic system where you can vote out a prime minister after one term? Why do you need two term maximum? This is reform that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, fair. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. Okay? Let's leave it at that.
Let's go to the
It's
NEP
going to
part.
be another 4 hours of just talking two terms.
No, but let's go to the NEP part, right? You have said that you want it scrapped and all that. Again, these are things that are our legacy. We have to accept.
The people have to decide. Like what you say, okay? If truly the people who are willing to fund a leader that is willing to try, okay? The question is whether our thinking masses, all right, are willing to do that and get that change is something I have a question about.
I don't think firstly, that won't happen, because NEP, you see, our constitution is not a melting pot. It's a mosaic. That's one thing we have to accept.
We also have to accept one thing, which is about constitutional law. Every constitution can be amended.
Which will be very difficult, because if you want to amend the NEP, you need firstly the votes of the parliament. Secondly, you need the council of rulers to agree, which they just will not. Because why would you give away your power?
I think, we are coming to a point where, regardless how we look at it, okay, we are coming to a situation where there is an imperative to change. Okay. Secondly, however we like it or not, okay, there's only two choices for us in the long term, and it's not that long a term, and that's why I say the runway is very short. Okay, because when you have, imagine when you have what do you call artificial intelligence doing all these repetitive jobs, when you have robo-taxis, all right, you're going to have a bunch of people with no jobs.
And you have to reskill lah.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether they can be reskilled, right? And I see the problem up the river, not down the river. The down the river is done, okay? So my thesis is actually you're going to be forced one way or another. You're either going to be forced, if you don't do it by ballot soon, okay, or the leaders don't change. Everything that we have seen is that sooner or later, when people don't have enough to put in their stomach or have their children fed,
then revolution will happen.
Yes. And I don't think that day is that far away.
No, I think you're right, because this has happened to us before, not to all people, but of course one of the reasons why we have issues. I mean, in terms of poverty, we have a B40 community. A lot of them, some of them, I wouldn't say a lot of them, but when we switch from agriculture to a high manufacturing base in our country, when our policy switched, our focus shifted, a lot of these workers from the plantation sector were not rehabilitated. So they were thrown out of plantations. They had nowhere to go, no skill to apply, and that's where they become the poorest in the country. So the only way, you're right, and our country is not proactive enough. We are very reactive. We are not proactive. That is why we don't have plans. Our plans are very short term.
And quick fixes.
Quick fixes. Yeah,
quick fixes.
So, which is wrong.
Tweak here, tweak there.
Cannot.
And this cannot go on.
I would say you can tweak a long-term plan based on geopolitical factors, climate factors, and all that. But you cannot keep just short-term and then tweak. Cannot lah. That's the problem. So our country is not proactive enough.
So I'm saying my point of view is actually we are coming to a point where the cliff is just over there. All right, we are very complacent because we all think that we're still okay. Right, we are the frog in the boiling water. Okay, you only have to drive from Taman Tun to Damansara towards the end of the Damansara sector, and you look at the poorer section, okay, of the apartment complexes, that are crammed with people that are falling apart.
Yeah.
Okay. You go to Taman Desa and all this kind of this area. All right. You realize something. We're cramping all these people, and these are the symptoms that actually the government is handing out from tax money and from oil money that is slowly coming down. Okay. People are saying, "Oh, our ringgit is getting better." Yeah, because you've got your short-term investment going into, not to say short-term money coming in, but it's being invested in data centers and whatnot. When you get investments like that, it'll pull down your the forex, right? But that's not necessarily a long-term solution.
No.
Yeah. So what we still don't solve is all our systemic core issue, and that is not that far down the road already.
Which is why, like, I go back to my point. I think the voters must wake up, and instead of wait for the reforms to be told to them, they should demand, I want these reforms, and stop going for the populist style reforms, because populist style reforms honestly don't make anything better. I know we disagree on the two-term thing, but I consider that under that category as a populist reform.
Okay.
Because
I consider that as a structural reform. But some people think, and including the leaders think, it's a... I have a gut feeling it's not going to be implemented anyway.
It won't.
Yeah, because why?
Because why
would they give away their power?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just for show.
Exactly. So I think the people need to wake up and say, okay, what are the reforms we want? Like, for example, I was talking to somebody who's from the farmer group. He's I think the secretary of the Pesawa, which is the farmer association, and he was talking to me about the issues that they were facing and all that. And when you listen to their stories, you realize that there is a huge disconnect between what is discussed in Parliament as opposed to what happens on the ground.
Not just that, I think 80% of what's discussed in Parliament is nonsense anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
It's basically interruptions and,
it's
name calling. It's not intelligent at all.
It is, I mean, it is. It's an insult to your intelligence.
It is. It is sometimes. It's good comedy, lah. It's good comedy sometimes.
I know.
But yeah, so I think those, in terms of leadership, I think the way for us to move forward is that leaders, the voters must be more involved in politics. You cannot say that, and also one more thing, I hope that voters will become more pragmatic. Like back to your point, you talked about NEP and dismantling and all that. That, to me personally, I don't want to see that happen.
I think it's very simple. If you ask me, then if you go on that basis, right? To me, the pragmatism is this. There's only one pragmatism we need, which is the amassing of this thinking class of voters and funds to back candidates that actually are going to new faces that need to see things change, okay, and structurally change, disruptive. I don't care really, to be honest with you. I don't even want to put one, this is not practical, two, that is not practical, three is not practical. No. All I want to see is actually somebody willing to make drastic changes, and we put them there and we see what happens. Because sometimes that's what happens with chemistry, right? Which is put the right ingredients and see what happens, So that's...
Yeah, that would be it. That's a good point,
I really don't care about... I just see... Even if they sound like, okay, this is something, like you say, we disagree, that you think that affirmative action is still needed. I don't. Okay? I think you should allow everybody to have the same opportunity, okay, and then let the cream rise to the top.
No, but you see, just to add to that, or maybe even correct that, I'm not saying that affirmative action is still needed. From the pragmatic standpoint, no political leader is ever going to dismantle affirmative action, because that will equal to political suicide. Why I say this is because if I'm Anwar Ibrahim now, and or whoever, Raza or whoever, if I say that I want to dismantle affirmative action, the opposition is just going to jump on it. Regardless of whether they inside may think actually it's good lah, we need to be more competitive and all that, Melayu boleh bertanding and all, they will jump on it. And they will ignite the fires of the people. They will blind the people with racist rhetoric, because they know that is a surefire, we are going to take over the government. They will do it. They will do it. And when they do it, eventually things will hit. It'll become like the whole Socks fiasco, Socks Gate in Malaysia, where because of certain politicians were sort of stoking the fires, and then you saw people throwing Molotov cocktails into shops.
Actually, that goes to your point of that the leaders are going to shut it down. But we don't have the leaders that shut it down. I look at so that to me, my counter argument is bring in people who's going to shut it down.
They won't.
They will.
Because
if you bring the right people in.
And let me tell you who are the leaders that you're talking about. It's you and I. I love that scene from Malcolm X, where Malcolm at the end he says, Malcolm X is you, Malcolm X is me. It's you and I. For instance, how do we go around the NEP? Is, for example, in my company, when I hire, I look at merit. Even I don't hire based on your skin color. Of course, being Indian, I'm going to be a bit more biased to the Indian, but at the end of the day, it's your interview to screw up.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. I recently hired a girl who's my editor, who is a very good editor, but she's Malay. But I don't care about that. So it is these practices that if we can do in our daily lives, that will eventually render the NEP obsolete.
Actually, if you ask me, right, what is happening now is because of how we have screwed up our education so much, it really doesn't matter. Almost everybody is equally fucked up.
Yeah,
excuse my four-letter word, but
yeah, bleep that.
I mean, it's like, we have lowered down our standards so much, and I'm telling you guys again. I keep telling everybody that actually the cliff is not that far, guys. The cliff is not that far, and the problem is actually my non-Malay brethrens, right? looking at it, oh, we are helpless. But actually, you are not helpless. They want you to think that you're helpless.
But why do you keep focusing on the leader class? They are, you see, the thing is, this is the mindset that I hope people will change, is stop looking at the leadership class.
What I mean is
the
this.
change is within me.
No. What I mean is this. When you say the change within you, this is what I mean. Which is people like us who can think. People like us who can influence other people. Okay? And that's why we're having this conversation and we're having this podcast. Right? Because we want to change the mindset of the thinking class. Because the one that are not thinking, which is 80%, like it or not. Alright? So, we have to have this that with the constituency that can make these changes. Okay? To come in and garner that support. Okay, because you need to put in 2, 3, 4 first. Okay, maybe next round it will grow. But if you don't even start one, you're not even gonna get there. And and the thing is, not everybody can send their children to migrate. Right? The problem is, a lot of my friends, because why? Okay lah. I mean, my friends who are Chinese or even the Malays, who are in the business class, right? Their children are all overseas. Okay? But when I look at the daily life that we have, most of our people, whether it's Malay or non-Malay, we're stuck in this boat. Right? So if we are stuck in this boat and we say we're hopeless, then we are truly going to be hopeless. That's my, that's my final my closing argument. Before I hand it over to Vinodh to close the argument. Please subscribe if you want to have more of this type of conversations. Vinodh, I let you have the closing argument, please, my friend.
I think this has been a message I've always spoken on my podcast as well. I've always said that the lead up to GE16 will be the most racially charged, bigoted campaigning we've ever seen in this country. That's because we have an opposition that doesn't really do their work properly. Instead of showing us manifestos and what they plan, they say, no, you vote for me first, then I will tell you what I do. I've never heard about this thing. And voters tend to think, because of what happened in 2022 or 2018, manifestos are not important. That's rubbish. Manifestos are important because they at least provide you with an inkling of what that government is all about. They give you an indication. They may not achieve all. Fair enough, but that's life. Because voters need to understand that there's a huge bureaucratic level there. There's a huge layer of bureaucracy that sometimes can be a hindrance. Okay, this is reality pragmatic. Malaysians must now ask themselves, come GE16, are we going to sell Malaysia's soul? That is a very important question. Are we going to allow these leaders to continuously use race and religion to blind us, to put us against each other? Because if you all don't believe me, go to Google or ChatGPT, whichever you like. Research what happened in Sri Lanka. Research what happened in Uganda under Idi Amin.
That's a good one. Sri Lanka is a very good
ethnocentric policies will always lead to the demise of a nation. This is historic. Even you can argue even Nazi Germany, but of course Nazi Germany had a lot of other factors, but Hitler's focus on nationalism of one community over the rest was also a contributing factor, because they kicked out a lot of their industrialists, all their technocrats, all were asked to leave or even killed in this case. So Malaysia needs to make a decision whether are we going to save our country? Are we going to push away these racial rhetoric and say this is not what I want? Or are we going to succumb to it? To all Malays who are listening to this, you will be the focus. They are going to tell you that your rights are going to be infringed upon. They are going to tell you that your position as the majority or the Ketuanan Melayu is going to be impacted. Let me tell you, it's all enshrined in the Constitution. That can never happen. That is all a lie. So you say, and this one point I disagree with you as well. When I was listening to your other podcasts, you say that the answer to Malaysia's future is with the non-Malays. I say the answer to the future of Malaysia is with the Malays. The Malays must get together and say, we want to direct this country to a better future. Everybody must have food on their table. Everybody must be prosperous. Then the whole country will be prosperous. So make a decision what you want. You want to either succumb to race, religion, or you want success, prosperity, while practicing your religion. Because let me be very clear, following a religion or being spiritual or being religious is a luxury. It's a luxury
It is.
for you, because the country, you still got food on your table. When there's no food on table, buddy, you don't care what God you're praying to. You want food on table. That's human nature. So my closing, I say, ask Malaysians, make the right decision. Push away those leaders who fight for race and religion. Support leaders who fight for economic empowerment. That's what I'm saying.
I think that's a good enough closing. I'm not going
you.
to add to that. Thank you so much.